Hello everyone, my name is AnaM. I'm a research assistant and psychologist in the Voice, Music and Language Laboratory in the Faculty of Education at UNED, Madrid. We celebrate today World Menopause Day, and I say celebrate because we are happy to have the opportunity nowadays to dedicate research and time to know better how woman's body works. My presentation is about the result of teachers' perspective on impact of menopause on voice quality and therefore the teaching learning process. The relationship between sex hormones and voice quality seems particularly relevant as to what concerns menopause. Menopause is a significant depletion in concentration of estrogens that may cause substantial changes in the tissues of the vocal tract and the larynx, specifically dystrophia, which has been observed in 90% of postmenopausal women. Therefore, female professional voice users' ability to work during menopause may become compromised. Teachers are one of those professionals whose livelihood depends on a functional voice or on specific vocal attributes. According to the National Statistics Institute of Spain, 67% are female teachers. As you can see in this graph, the lower the level of education, the higher the female teachers' representation. With our aging population, it is expected increasing numbers of menopausal professional voice users across different levels of education. 31% of teachers in Spain are over 50 years old, reaching one-third even in preschool and primary education. In Spain, 57% of teachers present voice disorders and only 14 are officially recognized as an occupational disease. In an educational setting, not only teachers may suffer from the negative impact of teachers' voice-related symptoms, but also students. Several studies have found that the voice quality may impact learning ability. Poor voice quality increases the complexity of the message, overloading the student's ability to select, organize, and integrate information, therefore, or in other words, affecting working memory. Bearing this in mind, the goal is to understand the voice-related menopausal changes within an educational context. We thought it would be very useful to start with a study based on the Spanish teacher's perception of voice-related impacts of menopause on teaching. We chose a qualitative approach based on semi-structured interviews. The inclusive criteria were being a cisgender woman in peri or postmenopause who used the voice 3 or more hours a day for teaching, and for the analysis, a thematic content approach was used. The result were three principal categories: impact of menopause on voice quality and use, relevance of voice-related characteristics in classroom settings, and voice-related occupational health and safety measures at the schools. 21 full volunteers finally participate, and they have an average age of 58 years old, 19 were in postmenopause, and only one in perimenopause. We first began asking about the general impact of menopause, and they talk about a decreasing on their quality of life and at work. None mentioned voice problems at menopause, so we asked them more specifically about the voice. 75% have or have had a voice problem, and about 47% were diagnosed with a voice pathology and required sick leave. Although none of the participants related those voice problems with menopause, when a question was made about when voice changes were experienced in relation to age, 50% of them report to occur during menopause. 60% of those teachers who experience voice changes during menopause report a lowering in pitch, 50% experience vocal dryness, and others loss of high notes, less ability to modulate pitch, hoarseness, and loss of power and volume. Nuria, a primary school teacher, reported, "I think my voice was more powerful. It had more strength before, and now has some limitation. I think I had a higher vocal capacity than currently, and my pitch dropped. Now I'm no longer able to sing anything. I always have been off tone, but despite that I have always sang. Now I can't do it anymore." Despite interviewees recognize that voice matters to them professionally, most of them use it without being attentive to how to do it properly and what consequences may emerge from those behaviors. Mara, a school headmistress and primary teachers, mentioned. The voice, of course, with age changes. I had never stopped to reflect on this subject. But it is also true that at the same time you are learning to modulate, to tell things to children. It is not something that they teach you. You learn with practice. And all of that, this is giving me a lot to think about. I don't know if even this could influence to, I don't know, attention, learning, behavior, attitude. My God, notice all the things I'm now thinking about my voice. And once we continue talking even more about the voice in an educational context, it also becomes clear that the teachers believe that there are student reactions to the teacher's voice and that this may interfere with the teacher's ability to work. 85% believe that the poor voice quality interferes with the teacher learning process because it reduces the student's attention and facilitates more negative student behavior, especially if they become aware of the teacher discomfort. It's funny because the first day in which you arrive hoarse at the class, students behave better than ever. It is a very curious thing that they behave very well. But of course, this is only during the first day, because later they start to misbehave, and this is unpleasant and frustrating. The most recognized self-report positive voice characteristics in teachers were to have a powerful and clear voice, to be able to modulate pitch, to be able to attract attention with the voice, not to have a high-pitched voice, and to be able to express authority with the voice. Exploring the meaning of voice-related authority, 45% of teachers mentioned that authority, according to their views, means a loud and low voice, characteristics that they associated with more male-like voices. Isabel, philosophy teacher in secondary education, said, male and female voices express different things to students. A male teacher is always in charge, getting a student respect, whereas a female teacher has the voice of a friend, a mother, someone to whom you can go and cry to. Also, 3 of the participants were or have been headmistresses, and 2 of them choose to follow voice education in order to be able to sound more masculine. Paula, a speech and language therapist in primary school and at a university level, said, to have authority, you must have a deep voice. I was the headmistress of my school and I had to learn how to speak with the lowest speed possible to prove I was in charge. This attitude is quite striking, not only because the gender prejudices that involves, also because according to the literature, a habitual lowering of the female voice range in speech may lead to voice difficulties. What about voice-related occupational health and safety measures in Spanish schools? Do they exist? What are the perceptions of teachers on these matters? According to the literature, the following risk factors that the interviewees mentioned contribute to the development of voice problems. Voice education, 65% have low or no voice education, and 0% have received continuing voice education as a state and free prevention measure. Classroom acoustics, noise is related to vocal effort and therefore voice impairment, and only 2 teachers think that their classrooms are soundproof. The use of technology emerged to avoid voice problems, and 35% report having the need to get a self-paid microphone, but not as a preventive measure, but rather a remedy after having already developed a voice problem. Carolina, primary education teacher, report, I don't see a concern with teacher physical or emotional health and well-being. With this respect, I think we are very, very helpless and alone. To the state eye, teachers represent a number, and so governors don't care if we are at menopause and if we suffer with it or not. So what can we conclude from this study? There is a lack of awareness of menopausal-related voice changes. Teachers talk about menopause decreasing their quality of life due to commonly associated symptoms, but voice-related changes were not mentioned. But it does not mean that they did not exist, but rather it seems the result of an absence of mind on voice use in daily life and at work. Indeed, when confronted directly with the question, and what about voice? 50% of participants noticed voice changes in association to menopause. This corroborates the need to develop and promote voice education from a gender perspective in the initial teacher's preparation. Maybe this lack of awareness on how the voice is being used may explain the high prevalence of voice disorders among these teachers. Teachers are aware that their voice quality impacts the teaching learning process, And also we found that there are gender-related prejudices that assume authority to be related to male-voice attributes and, what is even more important, needed to control the student behaviors and be respected by their parents. And finally, teachers are also aware of the lack of support from governmental policies that protect them from the development of voice disorders. Thank you so much for your attention.